Here on my channel, I like to always bring something a little bit different, have a variety of firearms. And in this video, I'm going to ask the help of my viewers and subscribers. This unknown black powder, I guess you'd call it a fowling rifle or whatever. As you can see, the reason we're at a distance, this thing is huge. It's a very unusual gun, and I believe it's been made up of parts. Some of them may be back from the 1700s or something. I'm not quite sure. But what happened here is this belongs to a friend of mine, and the way the story goes, this was like his great-grandfather's gun, and he got it from his grandfather, and they actually hunted with it out on the farmland they used many, many years ago, or the farmland that they own, many, many years ago. And he's had it, the guy hunts, fishes and that, but he's not really into guns, and this is like a family heirloom that's been passed down to him, and they just hang it on a wall. They've taken it to a gunsmith to see what it was, and they couldn't get an answer. But they were told not to try to fire it. Okay. So he just has it, and then what happened was, I guess wherever he had it or stored it or something, it got rusted, the lock and around the barrel and that. So what he did is he asked me to more or less do a cleaning and try to restore the gun, and that's what I've been doing with this. It's something I do for my friends. And plus, also, we'd like to try to figure out exactly what this is. I have my thoughts and ideas, but some of you out there may know a little more about it. So please put down in the comment section what you think. How old do you believe it is, or how you think it got this way? Put your theories down, okay? Because I'll give you mine. But let's take a look at this, because it's very, very interesting. Now, the main reason why I believe my friend cannot get any type of information on this particular piece is because I believe it's a compilation of parts, some maybe as far back as the 1700s, that have been modified over time and kind of put together in some sort to make a utilitarian firearm out of it. And really, I've never seen anything quite like this, because the barrel, it's a smoothbore. The barrel appears to be older, and something, you got your round, your wedding bands, and this. You have two wedges instead of one. Now, these older barrels used to be pinned to a long stock, like a trade rifle. And now we have this percussion lock and a drum stuck in there, which I believe that was done some time ago. And the lock does, I'll do a close-up of the lock when I take it off. It kind of does have a maker's name on there, but it's partially gone. I tried highlighting this, and I have highlighted a few things. There was checkering on this gun a long time ago. I don't know if you can see it or not. You can see the very faint checkering. But in a way, and here's, you got the pin holding the steel butt plate on. So this was done like 1700s type, and we have this long little thing on the butt plate. I don't know if you can see it. There was some sort of engraving or styling at one point in time, and just a plain little butt plate. Let me see if I can get a better look at it here. And you see where, like the older flintlock guns were, that's been pinned in there. And then as we go up the stock, which is very delicate, dried out and cracked, you have that little plate there in the wrist. And then we'll go and look at the barrel. And as you see, the wood's kind of expanded or dried or something, cracked. So, all right, and looking at the barrel, I tried to highlight the markings. It's like JR here. Everything is corroded by the drum. London is prominent on the top, and I use chalk. I tried painting it, but with no success to get it to stick. And after cleaning off the rust, I seen these features here at the top. There's a little section with engraving, and you see where I kind of smeared the chalk. And then something I didn't realize, it looks like there's two bands. You can see it there at the bottom of the engraving of a silverish gray metal around the back of the barrel. And you see the two parallel lines, and then there's another one there. So there's some stuff that has been lost. There's the proof marks. So this it's quite interesting, and some of these features weren't evident until after I kind of cleared it off or cleaned it. And as you see, we go down, octagon, you got the wedding bands, and then very long barrel. And which was highly interesting to me is this front sight, which is an inlay of German silver, I believe, up on there. And when you pick this gun up and sight it in, it is like a shotgun bead, a little bead at the very end. Okay. And there we are, smooth bore, very thin. I'm going to take some measurements here once we get done with the overall view. I'm going to flip it around and we'll take a look at it. And an interesting thing here, like all half stocks, it has this rib attached to the barrel, which I believe this was either JB welded or soldered on. The cleaning rod is missing. This is just a wooden stick to make it look good. And as you can see, the rib is starting to separate. And I believe there was a spot here where someone tried gluing it. But however this was attached, may have been soldered on in a couple spots. It's still pretty good towards the bottom here, the back. So this is something I believe you have an older barrel and maybe this was added onto there at a later point in time. And we have the traditional pipes that were added on. Now also this one has two wedges in the barrel. I'm not taking the stock off because I'm afraid it'll damage the gun, because this wood is really weak and old. And the lock, and weirdly the lock is only attached with one screw. So, and when we take the lock off, you'll see there's only one hole going through the stock to have a screw going across to hold the lock in. I don't know, this looks like a modern lock, but trying to get the name and that on there, this may be a much older piece. You have a nice little trigger guard and trigger. There, now you can see where there was some checkering there at the wrist, but not up forward. Okay. Alright, and taking a look from the other side, we see some more of that very fine checkering. It's kind of gone, you can't even feel it. The trigger guard, and like I said, highly unusually, there's just one screw holding the lock plate going through. And when you take the lock plate off, it doesn't appear that there were two, usually it's two screws that hold the lock in. This was never drilled out for that. And you see that it's cracked right here, so we have to be careful. And also now maybe I think you can see in between those marks that little inlay, and towards the back there's some sort of a grayish metal inlay. Could have been German silver or something. I didn't even notice that until I started filming here. And then you have, like I said, two wedges. Two wedges, usually there's the slots there soldered onto the barrel to hold it into the stock. Fairly nice. And then we come up again. And like I said, somebody just put a stick. I pull it out. It's not a ramrod. It's just a stick. All right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to take a look at this bore, measure the bore, try to get an idea what caliber it is, and then I'm going to lay this on the table, and we are going to take some measures like the length of the barrel and other such things. So let's get an idea of what the caliber is. Now the bore's pretty rugged and a little bit banged up, but looking like 645 thousandths. Okay, so this is not a 69 caliber. Yeah. I'm going to write this down. 645. Double check that. Yeah, close. 640. Come on, man. 640 thousandths. 645. Rough guess. That end of that muzzle is kind of beat up. And also, just out of curiosity, I wonder how thick the, because it is worn, how thick the barrel is. It's anywhere from 60 to 50 thousandths wall thickness. So whatever 640, 645, right off the top of my head, I don't know. And a lot of these older guns that were made in the 1700s, I think when they made the barrel and made the gun, they would make you a bullet mold, a custom bullet mold to fit the gun itself, round balls. All right, so that's what we got in terms of gauge and bore size. Now let's look at the overall length and barrel length and all that other fun stuff. All right, the overall length of this firearm, as we go down here, is looking like about 58 inches, I would say, roughly. Rough guess, not exact, but rough guess. 58 and a half. 60 is almost 5 foot long. That's pretty wild. All right, now we'll get a barrel measurement. All right, the barrel, starting from where it goes into the stock, that's the bottom of the breech plug. So you may have to deduct an inch or something. Kind of looks like 42 and a half inches is the length. So you're taking the plug into consideration, 42, 41 and a half, something like that. So that's the barrel length. Now we're going to cut to where I took the lock off the gun, and we're going to take a look at the lock, the barrel, where the inletting was done for the lock, and take a closer look at that stuff. And like I said, the gun is frail, so that's all I did, because I was requested to remove a very heavy buildup of rust that was on the lock itself and around the breech of the barrel. where the nipple and drum are. So we'll go to that now. All right, here's a look at the lock from the back side. There's the one screw and the little escutcheon or whatever, the little washer that holds it in the stock. And the one screw goes into this hole right here, okay, which is quite unusual. I've never seen anything like this before. But there's a look at the lock work itself. And I don't know if this other one was for another threaded hole or not. I can't really tell. But it's got a 3-position tumbler. And we'll look at the outside of it here. Now this is where I've tried to, I didn't notice it when I got this. This thing was covered in rust. And so when I cleaned it off, I've tried to highlight it, but where my thumb is, there's a maker's name on there. You can't really see it. I tried highlighting it, and what I found is PR, I believe, maybe, you know, that's what it looks like, PR. Then these two letters, and then PR, ER is clear. I can see that after getting it in the light, but there's either an NI, VI, or an M or something. It's obliterated. So I did find a maker on the lock. So I don't know if this is a, you know, antique or older lock on this gun here. So it may all be original and quite old. I removed the lock, which has this little plate here and this one screw that goes all the way through. Now, for some odd reason, there's only one screw holding this lock onto the gun, which is kind of unusual. I've quite never seen anything like it. All right, now that I have the lock off, we'll look at the stock itself and this whole setup. I'm going to hold this flashlight because it's pretty dingy, but you see up at the top by the nipple, that's the one hole where the one screw goes and holds the lock in. There's where your sear goes for the trigger. Here's kind of a look at what we got going on here, a lot of corrosion. And then this drum and nipple, which this may have been a flintlock at one time and maybe had that attached later on. Let me see if I can get a better shot of that. Yes, that's a little bit better. But you see where this drum has been attached to where the flash hole is? I don't know if this was a conversion on from a flintlock, may or may not be, not quite sure, but when we look at the lock, we'll see what that looks like. And here's another view, the front of that drum that goes on there. There's a stamping here. I'm not quite sure what it is, but we'll cover that when we look at the stampings. So there you go. That's what it looks like with the lock off. So after we looked at that, I really don't know if somebody would ever piece together guns like this just to make a very low-cost, simple firearm. Okay, like I said, the thing that's got me curious is there's only one screw holding that lock, and usually the screws go through on the side and would hold the lock steady. Where this here is kind of loose and wobbly, and hammer's also got some play in it. but it does have 3 positions on the fly. Now I got it to lock back, because he told me his problem was it wouldn't move. It was frozen solid. Okay, so now I got that to where it goes. I also tried cleaning out where the trigger was and that, and just generally made it look a lot nicer. And that's all he requested for me to do, is to control the rust, remove it, and get it to where, you know, this hammer would cock again. Okay. Nobody intends to fire the gun. In my opinion, it's looking to me like a much older barrel was fitted to this. And even if it was a flintlock at one time, okay, and there was some other type of lock mechanism on here, there's still no evidence of 2 screws holding that in there. Okay, it's just the 1 screw hole, and I know of no type of firearm, it's very unusual, that only has 1 screw holding the locking, even if this was a flintlock. And this does look like it was drilled and tapped out and had that drum put in there that we looked at. So, very curious gun. I don't know. I think it's made up of some really old barrel, and that was put together. That little fine checkering and that, you know. I don't know if a gunsmith way back when, turn of the century maybe, had some spare parts in his shop and built this, or maybe even post-Civil War or something. I have no idea. But it's a curious weapon, and like I said, actually, you know, it balances pretty nice. I could shoot this thing, and again, I don't know what the caliber is. I gave the measurements, so you guys that are kind of more into this style of gun can probably give me an idea of what it is. But there we go, something interesting. I got my friend's gun cleaned up, and if I can find out some information about this firearm, because he says he's asked several people and nobody can give him any type of information. So any information would be greatly appreciated, or just your opinion on what this is. All right, guys, let's set this down. Hit the like button, subscribe, and stay tuned.